A man came in every night at 2:47 a.m. and bought nothing. I need to tell you about the man who came into my store every night at exactly 2:47 a.m., not 2:46, not 2:48. 2:47, and in 3 months of this, he never bought a single thing. I worked the overnight shift at a Speedway off Interstate 75 just outside Dayton, Ohio. The kind of place that sells gas, cigarettes, lottery tickets, and regret. My shift was 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., and I'd been doing it for about 6 months when he first showed up. I was 23, saving up to move out of my mom's house, and I'd convinced myself that night shift was peaceful instead of what it actually was, lonely, dark, and way too quiet. The store was a rectangle. Registers up front, 4 aisles running back, coolers and freezers along the left wall, beer cave in the back right corner. We had 2 cameras that actually worked, one over the registers, one over the door. The other 4 were dummy domes, which management had never bothered to fix because, quote, nothing ever happens here. The first night I saw him was a Tuesday, or maybe a Wednesday. They all blend together when you work nights. I was behind the counter, half watching a YouTube video on my phone with the volume low when the door chimed. I looked up. 2:47 a.m. I remember because I just checked the time 2 minutes earlier, wondering if I could start my closing paperwork early. He walked in without looking at me. Middle-aged guy, maybe mid-40s. Gray hoodie with the hood down, dark work boots, jeans that had seen better days. He had a beard that was more gray than brown, and he walked with this weird, deliberate slowness. Not a limp, just slow, like he was counting his steps. He turned down aisle 3, that's the chip and snack aisle. I watched him on the monitor. He walked to the end, stopped in front of the freezer section, the big glass doors with the pizzas and frozen burritos, and he just stood there. I waited for him to open a door. He didn't. I waited for him to grab something. He didn't. He stood there facing the freezer for what felt like 2 full minutes. Then he turned around and walked out. The door chimed at 2:49 a.m. He never looked at the registers, never looked at me. I remember thinking, weird. And then I went back to my video. That was it. That was the whole interaction. And if that had been the only time, I wouldn't be writing this. The second night he came back, again 2:47 a.m. I heard the door chime and my stomach did this weird little flip, not fear exactly, just recognition. Oh. That guy, same gray hoodie, same boots, same slow walk down aisle 3, same stop at the freezer section. He stood there, motionless, staring at the frosted glass doors. I tried to watch him on the security monitor, but from the camera angle, he was just a guy looking at frozen food. Nothing suspicious. Nothing illegal. This time I called out, "Can I help you find something?" He didn't respond. Didn't flinch, didn't turn his head. He stood there for another 2 minutes, then walked out. 2:49 a.m. I told myself he was probably just weird. Maybe he had insomnia. Maybe he was a truck driver on a break killing time. Maybe he was mentally ill and this was his routine. I'd worked retail long enough to know that the overnight hours attract people who don't fit into daylight society. I didn't feel threatened, I felt confused, but here's the thing about working night shift. When you're alone in a fluorescent box at 3 in the morning, your brain has nothing to do but catalog patterns. And this guy was a pattern. By the 5th night, I was waiting for him. I'd stopped watching videos at 2:30. I'd just sit behind the counter, staring at the door, watching the minutes crawl by on the register clock. 2:35, 2:40, 2:45. And then, right on cue, the chime, 2:47 a.m. I started taking notes on my phone, not because I thought it was important, but because I was bored and because something about the precision of it bugged me. Most people who come into a gas station at night are messy. They're drunk or tired or in a rush. Their timing is random. Their behavior is chaotic, but this guy was a metronome. I noticed things. He never carried a wallet. I never saw a bulge in his pockets. He never had a car, at least not one I could see. Our parking lot had 2 pumps and space for maybe 8 cars. I started checking the lot at 2:30 every night. Empty. Then he'd walk in at 2:47. No headlights, no engine sound, just there, and when he left, I'd watch the lot through the window. He never got into a vehicle. He just walked past the pumps and disappeared around the side of the building toward the highway access road. There was nothing back there but a ditch, a chain-link fence, and the interstate on-ramp. He never bought anything. Not a coffee, not a pack of gum, not a lottery ticket. He never touched the merchandise. He just stood at the freezer. I tried to catch his eye once. I walked out from behind the counter, something we're not really supposed to do, but I was the only one there, and I stood at the end of aisle 2, pretending to straighten the motor oil. From there, I could see him in profile. He wasn't looking at the frozen food. He was looking at the reflection in the freezer glass, and in the reflection, he was looking at me. I felt the hair on my arms stand up. Not because he was threatening me, but because his expression was completely blank. Not angry, not crazy, just blank, like he was reading a spreadsheet, like I was data. I went back behind the counter. He left at 2:49. I told my manager, Diane, when she came in at 6 a.m. She was a 60-year-old woman who'd been in retail for 40 years and had the energy of a dying flashlight. Some guy comes in every night and looks at the freezer, I said. Never buys anything, same time every night. She didn't look up from her paperwork. Is he stealing? No. Is he bothering you? Not exactly. Then he's a customer, even if he's a weird one. Leave him alone. I wanted to explain that he wasn't a customer. Customers exchange money for goods. This guy was something else. But I could already see her shutting down, so I dropped it. That night, I decided to record him. I propped my phone up behind the lottery ticket display angled toward aisle 3. At 2:47 a.m. he came in. I hit record. He did his usual routine, walked down aisle 3, stood at the freezer. Left at 2:49. The next afternoon, I watched the video. It was only 2 minutes long, but I watched it maybe 10 times. The first thing I noticed was his hands. They were in his pockets the whole time. But his right hand was moving, not much, just a slight flexing like he was squeezing something. The second thing I noticed was his head. He wasn't completely still. Every 15 seconds or so, he'd tilt his head slightly to the left. Just a fraction, like he was checking something in his peripheral vision. The third thing, and this is what made me pause the video and stare at the screen, was the gap between the freezer doors. Our freezer section had 4 glass doors. Burritos and pizzas on the left, ice cream and frozen dinners on the right. Between door 2 and door 3, there was a metal frame, maybe 3 inches wide. From the camera angle, you could see a sliver of the back wall through that gap. In the video, when the man tilted his head, he was looking through that gap, not at the freezer, through it. I went to the store that evening before my shift, and I stood exactly where he stood. I looked through the gap between freezer doors 2 and 3. On the other side was the back wall of the store, painted cinder block, a fire extinguisher, and a bulletin board that management used for employee notices, schedules, and the occasional corporate memo. But from his angle through that specific gap, you could also see the time clock. The punch-in machine mounted on the wall near the back hallway, and next to it, the employee schedule for the month. I stepped back. My heart was beating faster than it should have been. He wasn't looking at frozen food. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the schedule. He was looking at when I worked. I changed my routine after that. I started parking in the back near the dumpster instead of in the front lot where I usually parked. I started locking the employee bathroom door, which I'd never done before. I started carrying my keys in my hand when I walked to my car at 7 a.m., the metal poking out between my fingers like a makeshift weapon. But he kept coming, every night. 2:47 a.m., same gray hoodie. Same slow walk, same 2 minutes at the freezer. I tried to find out who he was. I checked the security footage from the outside camera, the one that covered the pumps. It was garbage quality, black and white, grainy as hell. But I scrolled through the recordings for the week looking for 2:47 a.m. He never appeared on the outside camera. I checked the footage from 2:30 to 3 o'clock. I watched cars pull up, buy gas, leave. I watched the empty lot. I watched the access road. Nothing, no headlights, no figure walking up. He just appeared inside the store at 2:47 and disappeared from the lot afterward. I know how that sounds, I know. But I'm telling you, I watched those tapes until my eyes hurt. He was not on the outside camera. I started asking the other night shift workers, there were 2 others, Marcus and Jennifer, if they'd seen him. Marcus said he thought he'd seen a guy in a gray hoodie once, but he couldn't remember the time. Jennifer said she'd never noticed anyone, but Jennifer worked Tuesdays and Thursdays. I worked Sunday through Thursday. The man came in every night I worked. Every single night. That's when I realized it wasn't about the store, it was about me. I called the police, not 911, the non-emergency line. I told them there was a man who kept coming into my workplace at the same time every night, not buying anything, and it was making me uncomfortable. The dispatcher was polite but clearly not impressed. She took my name and number and said an officer would check it out. No one ever came. I thought about quitting. I really did. But I was making $18.50 an hour with the night differential, and I had exactly $2,100 in my savings account. I needed $3,000 to get an apartment. I was 6 weeks away from my goal. I told myself I could handle 6 more weeks. I told myself he hadn't actually done anything. I told myself I was being paranoid. That was the week he started changing. It was a Thursday, 2:47 a.m., door chime. I looked up from the register and there he was, same hoodie, same boots, same walk. But this time when he got to the freezer, he didn't just stand there. He turned his head. He looked directly at me. I was behind the counter, maybe 30 feet away. The store was silent except for the hum of the coolers. Our eyes met. His were light-colored, maybe blue or gray. I couldn't tell from that distance, but I could see that he was smiling. Not a big smile, not a threatening smile. Just the corners of his mouth turned up slightly like he was amused by a private joke. Then he reached into his pocket. My hand went under the counter where we kept the panic button. I'd never pressed it. I didn't even know if it worked. He pulled his hand out of his pocket. Empty. He held it up, palm out, like he was showing me he had nothing. Then he put it back in his pocket, turned back to the freezer, and stood there until 2:49. When he left, I realized I'd been holding my breath. My hands were shaking. The next night, he did it again. Same smile, same empty hand gesture. See? Nothing to worry about. But the night after that, the night that changed everything, he brought something. It was a Sunday. I remember because Sundays were the worst. The store was dead from 1 a.m. onward. No trucks, no drunks, no one, just me and the fluorescent lights and the slow, endless crawl toward dawn. 2:47 a.m. Chime. He walked in, same as always. But this time when he reached the freezer, he stopped. He turned around, and he walked to the front of the store. He'd never done that before, never deviated from the aisle. Never come within 10 feet of the registers. He walked up to the counter, slow, deliberate steps. I could hear his boots on the linoleum. Squeak, squeak, squeak. I was frozen, literally frozen. My hand was under the counter, hovering over the panic button, but I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. He stopped at the counter. He reached into his hoodie pocket. He pulled out a single piece of paper, folded once. He placed it on the counter. He looked at me, that same small smile. Then he turned around and walked out. 2:49 a.m. I didn't touch the paper for 5 minutes. I just stared at it. It was white, standard printer paper, folded in half. My name wasn't on it. Nothing was on the outside. Finally, I picked it up. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely unfold it. Inside was a photograph. It was a picture of me. In my car, in the parking lot. It was taken from the passenger side through the window. I was looking down at my phone, probably checking the time before my shift. My face was lit by the screen. The timestamp on the photo was printed in the bottom right corner, 2:46 a.m. He'd taken it 6 minutes before he walked in. I looked at the parking lot. My car was out there. I'd parked in the back by the dumpster like I'd been doing for weeks. He'd been in my car or next to it, or he'd taken the photo from inside the store through the back window with a zoom lens. I didn't know which was worse. I called the police again. This time I called 911. I told them someone was stalking me, leaving photos, and I was alone in a gas station. They said they'd send someone. The officer arrived at 3:20 a.m. I showed him the photo. I showed him the security footage. I told him about the schedule, the freezer, the 247 pattern. He was young, maybe my age. He looked at the photo, looked at the footage, and sighed. "This is creepy," he said. "I'll give you that. But he hasn't threatened you, he hasn't touched you, he hasn't damaged property. I can file a report, but what? Unless he makes a direct threat, there's not much we can do. We can't arrest someone for being weird." I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab him by his uniform and shake him, but I just nodded. He took the photo as evidence. He gave me a case number. He told me to call if the man did anything else. He left. I spent the rest of my shift staring at the door, praying it wouldn't chime. It didn't, not that night, but he came back the next night. I didn't sleep the next day. I went to my mom's house and sat on the couch with the blinds closed, jumping at every sound. I told her everything. She wanted me to quit. She wanted me to move back in. She cried. I almost agreed. But I was 23 and stupid and stubborn, and I thought, I'm not letting this guy take my paycheck. I'm not letting him win, so I went back. I bought pepper spray on the way, the legal kind from a sporting goods store. I kept it in my apron pocket. I also brought a flashlight, a heavy maglite that could double as a club. I told myself I was prepared. I wasn't. 2:47 a.m. Chime. He walked in, same hoodie, same boots. Same slow, deliberate pace. But this time he didn't go to the freezer. He walked straight to the counter. I had the pepper spray in my hand, hidden below the register. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. He stopped 3 feet from the counter, close enough that I could smell him. He smelled like dirt, like wet earth, like a basement that had flooded. He reached into his pocket. I raised the pepper spray. "Don't," I said, my voice cracked. He pulled out another photograph. He held it up so I could see. It was a picture of my mother's house. The front door, the porch light was on. The timestamp said 2:15 a.m. He'd been there tonight while I was here. He placed the photo on the counter. Then he spoke for the first time. His voice was soft, almost gentle, like he was talking to a child. 2 more weeks, he said. Then he turned around and walked out. I pressed the panic button. I pressed it so hard I bruised my thumb. Nothing happened. Or maybe it did and the alarm was silent. I don't know. I just know I stood there, shaking, staring at that photo of my mother's front door until the sun came up. I quit that morning. I called Diane at 6:30 as soon as she walked in, and I told her I was done. No 2 weeks notice. No goodbye. I grabbed my stuff and I drove to my mom's house and I sat on her porch with a kitchen knife until she woke up. We called the police again. A different officer came. I showed him the new photo. I told him what the man said, 2 more weeks. The officer actually looked concerned this time. He took the photo. He asked for the case number from the previous report. He said he'd drive by the store, check the area, see if they could identify the man from the footage. I never heard back. I moved in with my mom. I slept on her couch for 3 weeks, waking up at every creak of the house. I deleted my social media. I changed my phone number. I applied for jobs during the day, anywhere that wasn't open at 2:47 a.m. 2 weeks after I quit, I got a call from Diane. She didn't say hello, she just said, "He stopped coming." I asked what she meant. The guy in the gray hoodie, he came in every night for a week after you left, same time, same routine. Then he just stopped, hasn't been in since. I asked if she'd told the police. She said she had. They'd pulled the footage, they'd asked around, no one knew who he was, no one had ever seen him before, he wasn't from the area. He wasn't in any database, he was a ghost. I hung up. I sat on my mom's couch and I cried, not from relief, from the realization that I would never know. It's been 8 months now. I work days now at a hardware store. I'm home by 6 p.m. I don't go out after dark if I can help it. I still sleep with the pepper spray on my nightstand. I think about him sometimes. I think about what he meant by 2 more weeks. Was that my deadline? Was he counting down to something? Was he planning to hurt me, kidnap me, kill me, or was it something else entirely? I've gone over it 1,000 times. I've driven past the old Speedway a few times during the day. It looks normal, bright, safe, but I can't bring myself to stop. I still check my locks twice before bed. I still look over my shoulder in parking lots. I still wake up at 2:47 a.m. sometimes for no reason, my heart pounding, convinced I heard the door chime. And here's the thing that keeps me up at night more than anything else. I never told him my name, he never saw my ID, he never heard anyone say it. The name tag I wore just said trainee because I'd never bothered to get a real one. But when he put that first photo on the counter, he looked at me and he smiled, and I could have sworn that he mouthed it. My name, the one I never told him. If you work night shift and you see someone who doesn't belong and they do the same thing at the same time every night, trust your gut. Call the police. Call your manager. Call someone. Don't wait for them to put a photo on the counter. Don't wait for them to speak. Because the thing about patterns is that they're never random. They're practice. They're preparation. They're a countdown. And when the countdown ends, you don't want to be the one standing behind the register, wondering if today is the day he finally buys something. Or if today is the day he finally takes what he came for.